A lot of the problems that we have in the Philippines are usually symptoms of deeper problems.
Mm.
We have to look deeper, dig deeper, do root cause analysis. And that's where we're going to find out that a lot of it has to do with.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to G5 Philippines. We're doing a podcast today. A couple of weeks ago, I should say, I did a video on the business exodus in Singapore and how that might impact the Philippines, or the potential that that could have for the Philippines. And as a result of that video, I met a new friend. His name is Orion. And so today we're going to be doing a discussion. Orion is going to tell you his story, but what I know about him, he's spent 24 years in Singapore as an OFW. He is a Filipino and now lives back in the Philippines, but he's going to talk about, his insights. And I've done a deep dig on, the comments from that video. And so we're going to have a lot of response to those comments and really get into some of the details again of this, business exodus from Singapore. So Orion, welcome to the channel. Glad to have you.
Thank you thanks for having me here on your show, Gail.
I feel
Hi, everyone.
I feel like I'm privileged because as I mentioned before, when I did the research on the whole business exodus out of Singapore, I really extended the full extent of my knowledge on that subject. And this is the perfect follow-up to really, dig in and respond to a lot of the comments, a lot of the things that were said in response to my video. But again, thrilled to have you. Really, really counted a privilege. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
So everyone, and Gail, so my name is Orion, or Orion Perez, Doom Doom. And I was actually based in Singapore for like 24 years. Went there actually in 2000, and then just got back from there, back
Mm.
to the Philippines last year, January. Now, I've actually been working in the IT industry, and yeah, so that's my background from IT. I do a lot of project management, consulting, technical related stuff, and so yeah, I'm very much into analysis, troubleshooting, and basically planning out stuff in a very logical, sequential way because of the job background I've had. So my approach to looking at issues is also kind of based on that. So the
Right.
whole troubleshooting sort of ethos is there. I treat things the same way I would treat them in the IT field. So
Ah,
that's how it's usually been.
well, and it's interesting. We have another in common there in that I spent 30 years selling corporate IT in Nashville, Tennessee. I say
Nice,
30
nice,
years,
nice.
26 years to be more or less exact. But so
Mhm.
it's interesting that you and I share that. One thing, why would I care, as an American, why would I care about this topic? And I do, I deeply care, uh, not as much about the exodus from Singapore. That's just, fringe. But for me, particularly, I have three kids. We live in the
Mhm.
Philippines. What does the future look like for my kids if they were to stay in the Philippines? And that's my hope. Uh, I'm a red, white, and blue, full blood American man. I'm definitely, a full on patriot. In fact, I hate the term expat, but the bottom line is, the I do see an improvement since Trump has been, reelected, but the society, the culture in America, I prefer, the moderate tempered, culture in the Philippines. I say this all the time. I want my kids to grow up to be like their mom, their Filipino mom. And so I care about the Philippines. I don't want the Philippines to lose its charm, its
Mhm, mhm.
Southeast Asia, Philippines charm. I don't want that. But at the same time, I do want the Philippines to thrive. And I want there to be
Yeah.
not only just for my kids, which that's of course the closest to heart, but my wife's family. I see the lack of opportunity that young Filipinos have, especially without a college education. But
Mhm.
even with a degree, I have friends in Manila, that have the full on degrees, and yet they struggle to make a decent living, especially commensurate to their education and their intelligence, their
Indeed.
skill set.
Indeed.
So again, that's why this particular topic matters to me. It's not as much about Singapore. I just wanted to get that off my chest, so to speak, so that
Yeah,
folks
yeah.
understand why this topic matters to, a foreigner, right? So
Indeed, indeed.
so please continue. How did your experience in Singapore shape your perspective on business and career opportunities, especially, specific to the Philippines?
Well, I'll start off first with the fact that when I was working in the Philippines before I went to Singapore, I was actually working in Microsoft Philippines.
Okay.
And I was actually earning quite a good salary compared to what I would normally get in another company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Microsoft Philippines was paying me quite a good amount um, for yeah for that time. I think it was 2000 and back in the year 2000. I think I was earning something like 30 or 40,000, sorry, 40,000 um 40,000 per month, which was considered really high back
Yeah,
then.
sure.
Um, and then now the thing is, so I was earning a lot more than most other Filipinos, my age and in my position at that point in time. And then when I moved to Singapore via Microsoft Singapore, so it was an internal transfer.
Mm-hmm.
I basically you got the exact same job that I had here in the Philippines, exact same job, no changes whatsoever, other than the fact that the location changed,
Mm.
right? And immediately, it's kind of like I think my salary jumped up something like four times if you talk about uh gross. Okay, so for the gross amount, it was kind of like um I ended up actually earning something like four times basically.
Okay.
So yeah, 100, yeah, yeah, it's 160
Mm.
uh thousand per month compared to the
Wow.
40,000 that I was receiving,
That's
and
that's
that's gross.
serious. Yeah.
Serious. And then
Yeah.
if you talk about, I think if we talk about the net, the net amount that I was earning, because like, taxes are higher in the Philippines than they are in Singapore.
Mm.
I think it's roughly something like 30,000 that I was earning minus all the taxes already. So yeah, say 30,000. And then when I went to Singapore, my net there was something like 150,000,
Right.
which makes five times
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
in terms of net.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I was doing pretty much the same thing, the same type of job, the same company, same position, just a different location. And that for me was a big eye opener,
Right.
right? Like what's going on? I mean, I'm just doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And my 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 experiences in Singapore really were all about comparing between what was going on in why is it that in Singapore you earn much more, whereas in the Philippines you don't earn that much.
Right.
And and one of the other things as well that really bugged me was at that point in time in 2000, um, the cost of let's say the cost of food, for example, or even rent was not that high
Mm-hmm.
compared to what it is now. And
Mm-hmm.
it was very comparable to what you'd be paying in Manila, sorry, in Manila.
Right.
So, for example, um, our office at Microsoft Philippines was at the Enterprise Center in Makati.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go to the second floor for the food court, and the food court there, I remember they had something like a chicken and rice meal that cost something like 90 pesos.
Mm-hmm.
Just 90 pesos.
Right.
And then when I went to Singapore, I go down to the food court area of where the Microsoft Singapore office was.
Right.
And I'd be paying three Singapore dollars for chicken rice. Now, that time the exchange rate was 30 pesos, 30 pesos to one Singapore dollar.
Mm.
So
Okay.
I was actually paying pretty much the
Right. Right.
same amount for
So
the
it
same
wasn't
kind of
the point you're making is wasn't necessarily a difference in cost of living
Yeah,
necessarily. It
yeah.
was okay. Continue.
So back then, it's like, and even rent was kind of the same as well. I mean, I
Mm,
I think I was paying something like 10,000 per month for a very small studio apartment
right,
in Makati.
right,
And then um when I went to Singapore, I think I paid something that was like, I think, almost the equivalent of 30,000. So something like times three that
right.
for something that was probably a little larger,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or probably, yeah, something like maybe three or four times the size of that studio apartment. It was an apartment with two bedrooms.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like you couldn't actually say that everything was so much more expensive in Singapore. At least back then, that was not the case.
Right.
Increasingly, though, of course, I think it started in the mid 2000s when costs started getting higher. So 2005 plus, costs started going up in
Mm-hmm.
Singapore, and we've reached the point in 2024, 2023, 2024, 2025, where costs in Singapore have become really, really, really high,
Yeah. Yeah.
extremely expensive. And that's where we segue into the fact that a lot of people are now, a lot of companies are looking at alternatives to Singapore because it has indeed become so much more expensive than it originally was.
Right.
So,
Right. Interesting. Um, One of the other things that, I kind of wanted to tap you on, uh, by the way, I've got a list of notes here, so forgive
mm,
me. We might skip around a little bit.
no problem.
But one of the things that I mentioned in sort of a little bit of a terse comment exchange in, me defending the let me say it this way, me defending the potential of the Philippines, not as much as me defending the Philippines. It's just me defending the potential, the opportunity, because one thing that I've noticed is that so many people uh, really have a downcast view on the Philippines, and how difficult, how bad, how blah 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 blah. And by the way, these are not foreigners making these comments. I'm not going to specify, but these are not
They're Filipinos. Yeah.
okay. You said it, not
They're
me.
they're Filipinos. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll be the first to say that a lot of Filipinos are actually downcast about the Philippines
right.
because there are a lot of policies and
Mm-hmm.
laws or whatever, things that sort of made things difficult for businesses to get started, things that have made foreign businesses have difficulties coming in.
Right.
And these foreign companies could have come into the Philippines to create lots of jobs
Yeah.
because we don't have these opportunities, because we don't have these job opportunities here. So many people, like myself, were sort of forced to look abroad to find,
Right.
better pay. I
Well,
mean,
and see,
sometimes, yes, you do have a job, but then it's just not paying as much. And
that's
worse, there
something.
are a lot of people who don't even have jobs.
Right. And something for me that has really troubled me, when I see a Filipino, a young man married with young children, leaving to Kuwait or Dubai or somewhere to work for months, if not years. It's like, yeah, he's making more money. He's able to provide, better for his family. But what about him being with his family?
With his family.
I
That's the
mean,
whole point. Having a family, you're supposed to be with your family, right?
exactly.
It's
And
like you're
so that's
you're supposed to
been,
spend time with your kids, etc., right? That's
but it's so accepted, in the Philippines. Even my wife, I did a video a couple of months ago. I actually have a real serious opportunity percolating in Texas that's really, motivating me to. I'm not going to say I'm not buying a plane ticket today, but motivating me to think about the idea of moving back to the U.S. And of course, I'm not going to get into all the reasons why not. But the bottom line is my wife said, "Baby love, just go by yourself and start and get it going, and then we'll come later." And I'm like, no, because that could be 6 months to a year to, to get things set up and established. No, I want my family with me if I'm going to do that. Um,
Mhm.
but going back, circling back to some of the things we were talking about, the differences, or early on, the lack of difference in the cost of living. A lot of the comments, talked about how far behind the Philippines is in comparison. And one of the things that I happen to be knowledgeable about is, without research, is limited knowledge. But the Philippines was colonized by Spain and then Japan for centuries, hundreds of years. And so I compare, well, since we're talking about Singapore, was Singapore, uh, limited by, being under the rule of another country, and then you think about proximation in terms of, where Singapore is geographically located, close to China and, Malaysia and all of that. Do you think that that has something to do with the Philippines, being behind other countries in Southeast Asia?
Honestly, I wouldn't really think that it's the fact that we were colonized before that is the
Hmm.
main reason. I think because Singapore actually used to be poorer than the Philippines. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, they had a lot more poor people than we did,
Hmm.
and their poor people. I mean, like there were like snapshots of little communities in Singapore, and you'd think that's the Philippines. You'd think that that's the Philippines, but the Philippines didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
Those
Okay.
squatter slums
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
In 1950s, we didn't have the same kind of problems um, that Singapore had, and they didn't like we were much more educated by the public school system than they were. They a lot of them didn't have an education, and if ever they did, it was
Right.
usually for their own ethnic group. So like let's say the Chinese majority would probably have their own Chinese schools. They didn't want to go to English language schools set up by the British and all that stuff. They didn't really know how they didn't even know how to speak English that much. And even until today, honestly,
Right.
when they speak casually, so many of them actually they talk like this. They
Yeah.
have this. They
I
don't
I,
sound.
I follow Joseph Prince, a
Yeah, yeah,
minister
yeah.
in Singapore. So
Oh yeah, yeah. New Creation Church. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm
I know. Yeah.
accustomed to his English, although it's very good.
No, his is good, but like because he actually speaks pretty well. He just has that accent, but that's okay.
Right.
But
Right.
the ordinary people, there's a lot of people where they don't even use English grammar.
Mm,
It's
mm,
they don't say I went there yesterday. Joseph Prince would talk like that. I went
yeah.
there yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, ordinary people would just say he go there. I go there yesterday.
Right.
I
Right.
go there already. Something like that.
Right. Right.
They wouldn't say, they wouldn't be able to grammatically
Right.
speak proper English. I mean, not that they can't, but that they're just accustomed to
Well,
speaking like that.
it's the same here in the Philippines. My wife, she
Yeah.
rounds words off and stuff like that. I mean, the way I look at that, honestly, Orion, is that, you know, my wife is multilingual. I'm not.
Yeah.
you know, you know, she can speak two languages, or she understands Tagalog, she understands Ilonggo. Her primary dialect is Visaya, but the fact that she can speak English, I'm already amazed. So
Yeah,
because I'm certainly not. I mean, I grew up in Southeast Texas, and I don't even know Mexican or Spanish. So okay, well,
yeah.
I watched your video earlier on, Singapore, and you refer to Lee Kuan Yew's influence on Singapore's development.
Mhm.
What specific lessons from Singapore's economic model do you think the Philippines could adopt, given the Philippines' unique challenges, or maybe not unique, but Philippines challenges?
Yeah, I think the main lesson that we can learn from Lee Kuan Yew was that Lee Kuan Yew was a very practical minded guy. So he
Mm,
was he was not limited by ideology, whereas here in the Philippines, for the longest time, a lot of the leaders and the intellectuals were very much ideological. And so for a long time, there was this ideological baggage of, oh, colonialism is bad. We hate everything to do with being colonized. So we should make it harder for foreigners to come in. So there's kind of this baggage
Let's
of
say
hating.
let's repronounce the word ideological rather than ideological, because
Yeah.
because you know what that sounds like,
Ideology.
you
It
know.
sounds like idiot
Yeah,
logical.
yeah,
Idiot
exactly.
logical.
And we
No,
want to
I
be we
actually
want to be careful
I
of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're not calling
No, so
anybody idiots.
ideologically, this fixation on ideology,
Right, right, right.
you know,
Understand.
being too fixated on like this is the philosophy, this is the ideology that I subscribe to, and there's no changing that. Whereas
Right, right,
Lee Kuan Yew said, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's a lot of evidence showing that these countries, like the Netherlands back then, when they were reconstructing after World War II, they were getting a lot of American investors to come in, and they
right.
were rapidly moving up just because of that. And maybe we should do the same thing.
Mm, mm,
So Lee Kuan Yew learned a lot of these insights from other countries. He was looking at other countries. He was saying, "Look, whatever has been done by other countries, we can actually just copy and follow. We don't have to reinvent the
sure,
wheel."
sure. Yeah.
And so he said, if the guys from the Netherlands, the Dutch actually did this, we could also do the same. If
Hmm.
they did the same thing in Hong Kong, which is basically open up to foreign companies, we should do the same as well.
Right.
And when he did that, that allowed them to have, you know, unprecedented growth, job creation, a lot of opportunities for ordinary people to work and have good paying jobs. And whereas in the Philippines, because of this long-standing ideological fixation on keeping foreigners out,
Mhm.
there was, we didn't have the ability to take advantage of our English language ability to be able to reap those benefits.
Right, right.
We tried saying we kept on saying, no, we'll have our own businessmen, sort of our own local businessmen, create the jobs for Filipinos. But there were not that many local businessmen in the Philippines back then. I mean, a lot of them were, if ever there were businessmen, they were usually into buying and selling or setting up malls, setting up,
Right.
I don't know, divisions for people to live in and all that, but not so much manufacturing,
Okay.
not so much high technology and that stuff. And so if we had been a lot more open to having these foreign companies come in and create jobs for us,
Hmm.
I don't think we would have the same level of poverty and
Okay.
unemployment and
Okay.
low wages that has forced a lot of our people, like millions of our people, to leave the Philippines to become OFWs or migrate abroad permanently.
Right.
I don't
Right.
think we'd have that.
Which is really sad that, I mean, if you want to do that, then sure
Yeah.
do it. But to sort of have to do it because of economics, to me, it's just so sad.
No, and for me, it's like, if the best situation is like, hey, I'm doing pretty well in my job, and the company wants to send me and my family as like so-called expatriates
Hmm.
to work in Dubai or work in Singapore because we're at a high level, like I'm a sort of executive vice president or something like that.
Right. Right.
You're sent over there, the whole family's sent there, right?
Yeah.
But the problem in the Philippines is a lot of it is people working in low-level jobs where obviously they can't bring their whole families with them,
Hmm.
right? So it's a
Hmm.
single person working abroad for so many
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
sending money back, and then when they come back, finally their kids are already grown up, and they never really got to spend time with their kids.
I know.
You know?
The one of the guys that I was talking about earlier, referring to a specific instance, he said when he left and went to Kuwait, his daughter was 2, and when he returned home, she was 9. So 7 years between the and I look at my kids between the ages of 2 and 9. I mean, at 2 years old, that's when my kids really began communicating and
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
understanding, and having, some semblance of conversation. Up until 9 years, I mean, I can't imagine. And of course,
Those are the really formative years when you have to be
exactly.
with your kids.
Now, he sort of defended the situation. Not defended, that's too harsh a word. He kind of explained. He's like, well, I talk to my kids every day, online and this, that, and the other. And that's great, of course. We have that
That's way
luxury.
better than it was back in the 80s, though.
Exactly.
Well, there was no Zoom.
Exactly.
There was,
I mean, even 90s and early 2000s, the functionality was still far more limited. Well, this is extremely uh, interesting. I mean, fascinating, honestly. And it answers a lot of the questions. But as I said earlier, I had so many comments coming in on from that video, uh, and I really want to get your intelligent, experienced, responses to some of these that, honestly, I was kind of scratching my head. So, folks, Orion has a really great video that where he's really detailed, his experience in Singapore and really all of the things that we're talking about right now, the dynamics and the potential for the Philippines. So click the link up here or up here. I can't remember which side. I'll link to his video and I'll also include it in the video description as well as his YouTube channel. So, check that out. But I want to get into the comments now. So, Orion, I'm going to save you on some of this stuff was, as your channel is what, 7,000, 8,000 subscribers. So I'm sure you get your share of the same type of comments.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm scrolling down in my notes here. Uh, I have in the past, I've done reaction to comments videos where I actually, literally post the comment on screen. Not going to do that with these because there's several things that I want us to touch on. Uh, uh, so let's just get right into the first one. And this is also kind of a summation of all, there's probably 300 or 400 comments on that video.
Mhm.
So obviously I couldn't do all of them, but I took sort of a summation of those
Mhm.
comments.
Yeah.
Uh, right at the top of the list, uh, and I don't get into conversations about corruption. I'm a foreigner. It's not my place to talk about that, to get involved in those conversations at all. I completely avoid those conversations. But you're a Filipino, and I feel like you do have, the ground
Mhm.
to stand on. So the first one I came up with regarding leadership and corruption. Filipinos are skilled, focused, and really good at work and fast learners compared to, other countries. The problem is the corrupt government. And so, yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Oh, there was a follow on. I think the next talk hung should be against corrupt people. I don't know what that term means, but anyway, you take it from there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the main bogeymen in the Philippines. It's a major bogeyman that people talk about. They like to blame corruption per se.
Mm, mm.
That's a favorite. Uh, that's a favorite topic whenever people are trying to say there's something wrong with the Philippines and what's holding us back. They say it's corruption. My experience from having had to go around the region, because when I was in Singapore, I'd have to fly around to different parts of Asia,
Okay.
because usually Singapore is kind of like a hub for
Right.
Asia.
Right.
So I'd have projects not only in Singapore, but I also go to Malaysia, Indonesia, or wherever else. And I actually noticed that there's corruption everywhere,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, in the US is
There's
the
corruption and
same.
red tape. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's the same. Yeah.
So it's not unique to the Philippines.
No.
And then I'm just basically saying that corruption is actually more of a symptom of deeper problems. It's an effect or a result
Ah, that's
of
great.
some
Yeah.
deeper problems,
That's a great perspective.
which
Yeah.
if you fix those deeper problems, the corruption will eventually get reduced. I mean, I don't
Mm-mm.
think you can totally eliminate it, but it will get reduced. So one of the things here is uh, corruption really is just kind of like a survival mechanism for many people who are earning very, very, very low salaries,
Yeah.
try to scrimp by and sort of
Mm-hmm.
to get by, basically, because whatever salaries they're earning are just not enough for their needs,
Right.
right? So if we fixed the economy so that there are so many opportunities out there,
Right.
so many, like if I were to exaggerate it, if let's say at any given point in time, let's say there are 60 million people looking for jobs
Mm-hmm.
in a population of
Mm-hmm.
110 million, say 50 to 60 million people looking for jobs. And then we created a scenario where there were 70 million jobs
Right.
available,
Right.
right? Then those 60 million people will all find
Mm-hmm.
and there will be more for there will always be an extra set of jobs that they can always move to if they feel, well, this job's not paying me that well. I can always shift over to another job, which is probably going to pay more. And I think that that's how we actually improve the salaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have more jobs than there are job
People.
seekers.
People. Right.
Yeah, than there are people.
Absolutely.
So most people in government haven't really thought about this.
Yeah.
People like Lee Kuan Yew and even Mahathir Mohamad and other leaders around the region who've been able to sort of move their countries up have thought about this. They went back to the basics, like the law of supply and demand. How do you increase salaries?
Mm-hmm.
Have more jobs than job seekers.
Right.
So
Right.
that's always the way it's going to be. You're going to have to just keep on, uh, if you're the government, concentrate on doing everything you can to create more jobs.
Well, let
Government
me.
is not supposed to be the one to create the jobs, though. So
No.
so government should be the one to make the environment
Right.
necessary to make the job. So
Right.
we come up with a really good environment. We make taxes lower or whatever. You make things easier for companies to easily come in, because we already have the people. We have the English speaking people, hardworking, educated people, who
Yeah.
went to school for engineering and whatever courses, but they just can't find jobs,
Right.
right?
Well,
So
let
if
me
we concentrated on that, go
I'm
ahead.
uh I wanted to kind of throw a little bit of a prod into the flame, so to speak, because I know
Yeah,
that the viewers are going to agree with what you're saying. However, they're going to also say, yeah, but the rich leaders are also lending to the corruption, either in terms of turning a blind eye or perhaps being involved in it themselves. Again, I'm not here to speak to that. I'm just saying that the viewers are probably thinking, that sort of thought.
yeah. Actually, one of the things I wanted people to understand is we just need to remind our leaders in the Philippines that, hey, if you guys do your job and make sure that there are more jobs than there are people,
Mm, mm,
things
mm.
will be better for everyone. You guys in power, you can actually have higher salaries too.
Yeah.
You won't need to put your hand in the till. You won't, because you're going to
Yeah.
be earning a lot more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to have better official salaries, just like in Singapore. Singapore, what they did was they progressively improved the salaries of all civil servants and politicians. So they're now able to demand that these people do a good job.
Right.
They do a good job, and they should not be corrupt. Any whiff of corruption makes an investigation necessary. And when they really get into that investigation, and they find out that a person has in fact gotten involved with corruption, that guy gets really punished.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
able to afford to do that because they say, look, we're going to be paying you a lot of money to
Mm,
do your jobs.
yeah.
And then, but the question is, where do they get the money? Of course, it's taxes, right?
Sure.
And where do they get the taxes? From all those people and companies paying taxes.
Right. Right.
So that's how they started. The mindset of Lee Kuan Yew is we just really need to concentrate on the economy.
Yeah.
The economy first. Let's job creation first.
Yeah.
And what's the lowest hanging fruit for job creation? It's bringing in foreign investors.
Okay. Well,
So
now you're hitting
how?
a hot button for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yep.
there's and I noticed you put out some content on this very same issue at the very
Mhm.
same time that I was, but there's a lot of, and I'm just going to say it in the context of this video. I think that there's some folks out there that are clickbaiting on saying that Elon Musk is already in the Philippines, that he's already, well, he is. Tesla's here, Starlink is
Tesla's
here,
here. Yeah.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But these folks are making it sound like he's built a mansion here, and I got one comment saying that he had bought an island in Palawan. You know, maybe or maybe not, but I cannot find anything that validates or confirms any of that. Someone said something about Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Bezos, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, setting up shop or setting up homes here, and maybe they are, but again, I can't find anything. But you hit the nail on the head. I truly believe that if and I'm gonna link to my video here. But
Yeah.
if Elon Musk, and I'm a fan, I don't believe in everything that he says, but I'm a fan of what he's accomplished. I mean,
Indeed.
to make electric vehicles a real thing, via Tesla, to make, I mean, he started out, I think he was competing a little bit with Jeff Bezos in terms of aerospace, but now he's the go-to contractor for NASA. NASA
Exactly.
is using his gear, to go in and out of space. And so, and then all of his other ventures, I mean, even Twitter, has made Twitter a fair place to, I'm not a Twitter guy at all. I've tried it a couple
Same
times.
here.
I'm just not that. But anyway, okay, so I want to move on because I've got five or six here. Uh, Another top issue that was raised in the comments is the economic instability and brain drain. Uh, One person, well, a few people said don't expect any improvement until 2028, which is, I guess, the next election. And then there's a lot of Western companies that outsource and hire virtual workers in the Philippines because they pay cheap for the salary, but you can get result and excellent work. Well, for me, this is a couple of hot buttons because, again, I would like to see Filipinos paid commensurate to their skill set, their education, their ability, versus, the standard going rate in the Philippines or whatever, or those standards to be raised, and
Yeah.
then the brain drain. So I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah. And again, the brain drain, all these issues that we have, they're all really just symptoms of the same root cause.
Mm,
And the same root cause is really the lack of opportunities. And the lack of opportunities are because the Constitution and the laws of the Philippines have sort of disfavored bringing in foreign investors. Because of that ideological fixation on keeping foreigners out because of the fear of
hmm
colonialism or whatever. Oh, they're going to take over us, blah blah blah. This kind of thing is is like a mental block that's
Yeah.
kept a lot of our leaders and even some of our economists from thinking that, hey, let's do what we can to just fix the unemployment and poverty problem first.
Right.
All these other things are actually just peripheral or resultant issues
hmm
from this main thing. I mean,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
brain
Yeah.
drain, that all comes from the lack of opportunities. Corruption, again, lack of opportunities.
Yeah.
Crime, lack of opportunities, etc. Everything is actually all boiling down to just
Yeah.
lack of opportunities.
That's a great point. One thing that since I've been in the Philippines, well, I've been married to my Filipino wife for 13 years, so I've been in and out, but I've lived in the Philippines for the last 7 years. And the thing that I try to encourage, you know, I have to be careful because, I come from a culture, an opportunistic, you know, type of myself. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I'm not as successful with that as many, but I'm also not driven to be a millionaire. I don't really care about that. I just want to enjoy life. But uh, the bottom line is I don't wait for opportunity to magically appear, before me. I seek it. I
Mhm.
continually, educate myself. I'll be 59 in March. I'm still a student. I'm still learning stuff every day. With the work that I do in marketing, which is my primary income. My customers challenge me all the time, and I have to be aware of the fact that I am 59, and that you got 20 somethings coming out of college that have skill sets. So I have to be competitive. So I'm continuously learning, but and this is going to sound like a criticism, and I don't want it to sound like that. I really encourage Filipinos to get up out of their chair and pursue. It's not going to just happen. I have nephews, for instance, that are early 20s, working age, and their their aspiration is to. I'm broad brushing and generalizing. I don't want to do that, but the aspiration to be a motor cab driver. I mean, come on, let's reach higher. And I don't have a lot of free time, but I do try to impart things that would help them, of course. And so, blah blah blah. I'm trying to keep this concise. The bottom line is, you know, is I try to encourage Filipinos that they have to make the opportunities happen. They gotta get up and go. I call it, when you get out of bed in the mornings, get out of bed on purpose, you know,
Indeed.
with a
Yeah.
determination. Um, okay, so let's move on. I can see us going 3 hours here, and I'm not Joe Rogan, and so
If we're not careful, it could be five.
yeah. Uh, so infrastructure challenges, this is something I'm, deal with myself. It is better even here in the province. I have fiber internet. I have, you know, the electric is, I will say, is really my biggest frustration, but I can honestly see it improving. Infrastructure challenges. The Philippines need to remove restrictions on foreign ownership, reduce corporate tax to zero. Um, Another, the problem is it seems businesses are veering just to neighboring countries, especially Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia, uh, to bypass the uh, perceived infrastructure issues.
Yeah, I mean, so I was going to say this is the part where we have major disadvantages,
Mm,
really. I mean, like, so that's why when companies that are in Singapore are thinking of cutting costs and moving somewhere else, their go-to place is actually Malaysia.
mm,
And
mm.
because they're now in Singapore, and Singapore and Malaysia are very similar. The accents are very similar. The general culture and environment is very, very similar,
Right,
actually, because Singapore used to be part of Malaysia long ago. Um, so when whenever people think of people already in Singapore think, you know what, it's so expensive here, let's move someplace else. Usually, by default, it's Malaysia they're thinking of
right.
because Malaysia was lucky enough to also have a good leader, similar to Lee Kuan Yew, a leader named Mahathir Mohamad.
Mm,
So Mahathir Mohamad, um, he also did the exact same things that Lee Kuan Yew did,
mm-hmm.
with a slight tweak though, but basically the same things, bringing in lots and lots of foreigners, foreign
Right,
companies
right,
to invest and create jobs. And in so doing, Malaysia ended up having similar to Singapore, a labor shortage.
mm-hmm.
And in that labor shortage, they had to import people from abroad, including Filipinos,
Right,
to work there because they were so successful in creating more jobs than their own number of locals that they had to do this. And because they had a good economy going, obviously they had money coming into the government.
right.
That money, that tax money coming in, could now pay for good infrastructure.
Mm, mm.
And I mean, that's always a cycle of how it goes, right? I mean, when you
Yeah,
start off with the businesses,
Well,
Let the businesses come in, they
and not
start paying taxes, blah blah blah.
not to interrupt you, but I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily like remove restrictions on foreign ownership. I think the 60/40 is fair. You know, being a foreigner, obviously, if I were to set up a business in the Philippines, which I have no intentions of doing that, but, I trust my wife well enough that we would just set everything up in her name. That's fine. But
Mhm.
aside from that, you know, uh, I think that the 60/40 is fair. I think that, a guy like Elon Musk, let's use him as the example, is smart enough to figure out a workable, compromise with, partners in the Philippines. But at the same time, you have to wonder, well, why would he fool with it? Because of the 60/40 thing, why would he fool with it in the first place when, he can go anywhere else in the world and have full ownership? Even America allows, foreigners, immigrant to, own business or whatever, own property. Uh, and so, I see that, but it's kind of like the catch 22. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that with foreign investors like an Elon Musk and the importing of money, then the infrastructure surrounding that operation improves to,
It will improve.
but
Yeah.
the fringe and the ripple effect to the surroundings. And I even thought, how cool would it be if, he were to set up shop in Panay, or in some of the lesser, metro areas.
No, I'd love him to set up and create lots of jobs for Filipinos.
Yeah,
The sad part is,
Negros,
yeah, yeah, all
Panay,
around,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think really the sad part is because of the way the Constitution was set up, we're the only country in the region, if not the world, we're the only country that has numerical ownership restrictions against foreigners in the Constitution. Because like other constitutions don't have that. Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, whatever, they don't. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, they don't have these in their constitutions.
Why do
It's
you think that
possible,
is? Why? Let's get to the nut. Why do you think that is? What
like
what
I
was
said
the
earlier.
what was the thinking when the Constitution was written that
Yeah.
set it up that way?
Like I said earlier, there was an ideological fixation
Okay, okay.
on keeping colonizers out. So they didn't like colonialism. They said, "Oh, the
Well,
foreigners is just are out to gut us. They're
that
out to
makes
take everything." Blah blah
and
blah.
that sentiment continues, today,
Today,
with
it's still
Filipinos.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, and it's a vicious cycle
Mm-hmm.
because people. So the Philippines continues to be poorer than the rest of its other regions,
Mm-hmm.
other countries in the region, and so people have this lower self-confidence.
Okay.
And because of that lower self-confidence, they even feel more afraid of foreigners. And
Mm.
so all the more, we're never going to be able to fix this problem of being able to get more job creating investors coming in because we're keeping them out because we're feeling bad about ourselves being poor.
Yeah.
Whereas in the case of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, he said, "You know what? We don't even have a choice." And he was intelligent enough to see this. He said, "If we were to do what all these other third world countries around the world were saying, which was to keep foreign investors out because they're colonizers, we would never have a chance." That's what he said. Because we're a
Yeah.
very small country. We don't have any natural resources. We have a huge uneducated or not so educated population. That's what they had back then. And and they had a lot of poverty then. And he said, the few businessmen that we have in Singapore are usually just into buying and selling, setting up malls, setting up bazaars.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They don't have hardly anyone is doing high tech, hardly anyone is doing manufacturing.
Right.
Most people at that time, many people were uh, working in the British bases, British military bases
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the British were saying, "Oh, you know what, Lee Kuan Yew, we're going to pull out soon because we're no longer a world power. That's the British back in the 1960s. They were saying the U.S. is the new power. We're no longer a power. We're broke. We're losing all our colonies, and we can't pay for this anymore. So we're gonna pull out. So yeah, we're gonna say goodbye to you guys in 2 years. And then Lee Kuan Yew said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Could you guys like extend a little bit because our guys are gonna lose their jobs?
Yeah.
Just extend a little bit, add another 2 more years. Now, and then they said, oh, okay, we'll think about it. Okay, sure, we'll help you guys out. We'll extend a little bit longer. And then
Right.
he had to think, he had to turn around and think, what am I going to do to create jobs for these people who are soon going to lose their jobs as soon as the British leave?
Mm,
That's when he thought about bringing in the foreign investors. He said, look, we just need to create so many jobs that will be waiting for these people. And as soon as the British pull out, they'll have jobs waiting for them.
right.
And
Right.
that's what happened. He was able to pull that off. He was able to, bring in Texas Instruments, all these other,
Right.
HP,
Right.
all
Right.
these companies from all around the world. Um, and
So
that's
let's
how he solved his unemployment problem.
so let's look at a couple of things here. This is incredibly. I mean, all of this is fascinating because it's one thing to hear these comments, and there's hundreds more, but those are the main points that I felt like were kind of the bubble that rise to the top. Those concerns, but in all varying forms. Some, it was a positive statement, and others was just extremely negative. It's like the Philippines can't, blah blah blah. And for me, it's all about yeah, but if we get out of bed on purpose, if everybody or the masses would take on a more positive attitude and would really strive on a daily basis, how could that ripple effect up to leadership and and affect the Philippines in a big picture? So with that, let me say this: what do you think, looking ahead? And I kind of already know the answer from things that you've already said, but what is the vision, not necessarily mine or yours, but the vision for the future of the Philippines? What do you see as the most important factors for reform uh, to become a competitive global player? I mean, is it really infrastructure, political reform? I mean, or a combination of everything? I'll let you respond to that.
I would say it's a combination of everything, and the starting point has to be fixing the poverty problem, fixing
Mm,
the unemployment problem. Let's start there. Let's start with how do we keep
yeah,
our new graduates
yeah,
in the Philippines so that they
yeah,
don't have to leave?
right.
How do we keep our country's breadwinners
Hmm.
in the Philippines and not have to leave their families and be away for so many years and end up having all these broken families? Because there's a huge number of broken families, all because people were forced to leave. And it's really this bad.
Yeah.
Uh, there are so many families where you have both parents,
Hmm.
mother and father, working abroad in different countries.
Yeah.
Like maybe a father is in Saudi Arabia working as a construction worker, and the mom is working as a maid in Hong Kong or in Singapore. And they never get to see their kids, and they never get to see each other for like 5 to 10 years,
Let
right?
me
And
let
in
me
the end,
interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. Speak to your Filipino countrymen and say, what do we need to do as individual persons to affect change? What can I do, not me, but what can I, as a Filipino, get up every day? What can I do to affect change?
mhm. Well, this is the thing that I think will make a difference. We, all Filipinos who are watching this video, we should all do what we can to lobby our government, to lobby all our politicians to adopt the right reforms that would, first of all, allow us to have so many jobs. That really means getting rid of the 60/40 and other restrictions inside the Constitution. That doesn't mean that we will no longer have restrictions or regulations against or that are aimed at controlling foreign companies. We
Right.
can still have that, but we should take them out of the Constitution. We should
Okay. So,
relegate whatever restrictions that we're going to have. We put them in legislation, not in
okay.
the Constitution, in legislation, so
For
that
for the
it can
I
be
know
more
I know
specific.
I'm interrupting you, but I
No
really
problem,
want
no
you
problem.
I really want you to go deeper than that. Okay, so for the Filipino that says, "Who am I? Nobody's going to listen to me. I don't have anything to say. I don't offer any value." And whether they say that out loud or not, they're thinking that possibly. So let's encourage that person who thinks that they are, inadequate or they have no. You get what I'm trying to say. Let's talk to that person. What can that person do at a micro level to affect change in the Philippines?
Well, they can first learn. They can first
Okay.
learn as much
Yep.
as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they can learn about it. They can go to my website, www.correctphilippines.org,
Okay. I'll put
and
that
they
in
can
the.
learn about what are the reforms that the Philippines needs, and it's done in a very layman friendly way.
Okay.
They can follow me on Facebook, Orion Perez D, and they can see all my videos or my posts, which I post in English,
Mm,
post sometimes in Tagalog, and I also sometimes post in Cebuano as well.
mm, okay.
Um, and people can learn about what needs to be fixed, and from there, once they learn that, they can now start to spread the word to their
Mm-hmm.
friends
Mm-hmm.
about it, and also lobby the government. And now it's easy
Because
to do that. You can everybody in government in the Philippines has a Facebook page.
right.
All senators, all
Yeah.
congressmen, everybody, the president, the vice president, they all have Facebook pages. The government itself has Facebook pages. They have email addresses. We can all demand that they
And then
please fix the
and
Constitution
I
and improve it.
so then I would add is, yeah, you as a single one person may not necessarily be heard. We get that. That's reality. But if one person turns into five and five persons turns into 500 and 500 turns into 5,000 saying the same things, somebody
Exactly.
at some point somebody's got to listen. So it starts
Exactly.
it starts with me. It starts with you raising these concerns. You know, don't feel
Exactly.
like you're inadequate or that you're not smart enough or that you do it. Just get out there and do it. It's if it's not about you, then it's about your kids. If it's not about your kids, it's about
Exactly.
your kids' kids. Okay, I'll get off my preaching stump. Let me move to one more thing. Uh, the role of Filipinos abroad. You know, how do you see OFWs driving change back in the Philippines? How can their experience and knowledge bring them back to the Philippines? Uh, I'll let you finish the question and answer
Well,
that.
here's what happened. And when I started the Correct movement, which is the advocacy movement that I started in 2010, a lot of the first converts I had were largely OFWs, fellow OFWs.
Mm-hmm.
They could understand exactly what I was saying. The
Mm-hmm.
whole message actually resonated with them because they they were, and many of them still are, based abroad, and they've been able to see exactly what I was talking about. That look, compare where you are right now versus what's going on in the Philippines. Why? What difference is there other than policy? Really, it's policy that's the main difference.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
got wrong policies in place. They have the right policies. Sometimes they have the right policies and they don't have the educated English speaking workforce, which is
Mm-hmm.
precisely why a lot of us become OFWs in their country because they
Yeah.
need our skills,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Right.
But they have the right policies in place. That's why they've become prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can do is we need to set up the same kinds of pro progress policies,
Mm-hmm.
pro prosperity policies. We
Mm.
need these in place.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's all in the website, correctphilippines.org. I talk a lot about getting rid from the Constitution, getting rid of the anti-foreign investment restrictions.
Hmm.
If we need restrictions, just put them in legislation where they can be more specific. And when things change, they can be more easily tweaked
Yeah.
as and when changes happen. You can't do that with a constitutional provision, which it's very hard to change. That's why you don't put these kinds of things in a constitution.
Right.
Then we need to also have federalism because we can't have all of the jobs coming only into Metro Manila. We want the jobs
Yeah.
that come in when all these foreign investors come in. We don't want them all moving into Metro Manila alone. We want them going to all parts of the Philippines, the provinces, the
Exactly.
regions,
Exactly.
everything. So we need
Exactly.
federalism for that. Lastly, we need to fix our system of government so that we have less of the corruption, less of the personality politics and all that. And it's all in the website. You guys can check it out.
Well, Orion, I got to tell you, man, this has really been fascinating. I'm so glad we were able to do this. As we talked about earlier, I think it'd be great if we did, this on a monthly basis, just to talk about these kinds of issues
Mhm.
and things like that.
I think so too. Yeah.
But as I said, folks, Orion, I mean, I'm highly impressed with this individual, and I have only taken a few glances at some of his content, but man, you do yourself a favor, avail yourself to his, content. I'll share all of his links in the description. And and the whole premise of the first video that I did and this talk very literally boils down to one thing. I just want to see the Philippines thrive. I love the Philippines. I love the Filipino
Same
people. I
here.
love the culture. I just want to see the Philippines thrive. I'm tired of seeing my Filipino friends, highly educated, highly skilled, living at a poverty level. It's just not right, and me as one guy, especially as a foreigner, I can't really do a whole lot to affect change other than to be an encourager or a supporter, and I'm not sitting on a stack of $1 million either, so I'm not even able to really help financially. But what I am is a motivator, and that's what I'm trying to extend what I have, to the Philippines. And so again, Orion, thank you so much. I count it a privilege that you came on and spent some time with
Thanks
me.
for having me
Uh,
on your show,
Man,
Gary.
I'm
It's a
I'm
pleasure.
really thrilled, and I hope that the folks really get some value out of this. But that's really my wrap up. Do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Oh yeah, so this is for all the people listening and watching us here. Again, really, a lot of the problems that we have in the Philippines are usually symptoms of deeper problems.
Mm,
We have to look deeper, dig deeper, do root cause analysis, and that's where we're going to find out that a lot of it has to do with the wrong policies, the wrong economic
mm,
policies, the
mm,
wrong structural policies that were set up based on sometimes mistaken assumptions, mistaken notions, mistaken ideological fixations on a certain way of thinking that might not anymore be fit for the times today.
mhm,
And I guess my main message to everyone is we all need, especially us Filipinos, we need to really lobby the government to learn best practices from countries that have succeeded,
mm.
countries like Singapore. And like I said, there was Lee Kuan Yew, the leader of Singapore. He actually gave us a lot of free tips and advice way back in 1992 when he visited the Philippines.
Mm.
We should
Yeah.
have followed that. We should have listened to that because we didn't listen to that. We're kind of trailing behind all our neighbors, and our neighbors learned from Singapore.
Mm.
Singapore did the right stuff. That's why they became a first world country
Mm.
in the 1990s,
Yeah.
and we're still stuck. They were poorer than us before.
Mm.
So
Well,
let's learn from what they did right, you
and
know?
I want to repeat myself and tag what he just said. You have a voice. Use it.
Yeah.
Don't think of yourself as inadequate or invaluable. You have a voice and use it. Every voice matters. So yours included. whatever your opinion is, whatever your affiliation is, whatever, use your voice and speak it. Raise it up. All right.
Indeed,
All
indeed.
right. All right. Good deal. Okay.
Thanks again,
Yeah.
Gail. This
Thank you.
is a
Thank
really
you.
great platform,
This
really great
fantastic.
conversation.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, folks. Thanks again for watching, especially if you watch to the end. That really matters. I'm not going to beg you, but like, share, subscribe, all that business. Do the same thing for Orion on his channel. But yeah, we'll see you in the next video.
And I love my life.